All right. Well, good morning. Good morning, everybody. It is Friday morning, and we're near the end of June now. It's so hard to believe. Everything is just kind of flying by. The world is happening all around us. Life is going on. We are here. We are here today. And I've been kind of like caught up, I think, a little bit in the whirlwind of everything that has been happening, like on a national level, on a local level. We are just being kind of bombarded, I believe, with all of this work to do, right? All of these things that really require our very focused attention. And so I think that sometimes when I am faced with a lot of things that require my focused attention, my attention gets a little bit scattered. And I know I'm not alone in that. I know that it's just like there are so many things that are important. There are so many things that need to be done. How do we focus in a little bit more? And I always come back to this idea that by maintaining a connection with your own energy, with yourself, that you can then move forward and do whatever work you feel that you need to do with more conviction and with more strength and more efficacy. It's early and I've just had 3 sips of coffee. So we're going to practice today a little bit of core stuff, a little bit of core strengthening and stretching, and we're going to enjoy a mudra as well and some breathing exercises before we begin our Friday so that we can feel a little bit more connected to this like centermost part of our body, right? The space in between our rib cage and our pelvis. And really, it's not just about this area, right? Everything kind of radiates out from it. So when we practice a little bit of core strengthening, stretching, awareness, that effect radiates out into the heart, into the lower chakras, into your limbs, up into your head. Good. So it kind of touches everything. And I think for this practice, we're going to use just a block. If you have something block-like nearby, I highly recommend it. If you don't have a block, it's okay. It's okay. Sometimes I'll just take like a blanket and turn it into something like a brick or even like a pillow folded in half. You don't have to have like fancy yoga props to do any of this stuff. Okay, so we're going to get started on our backs this morning. I am thinking. I don't know if you guys are early risers, but I am. Sometimes lying back down is a little bit weird. But just take a little bit of time to get comfortable here. All right, I'm gonna set up in constructive rest like this with my knees up. But you might decide to extend your legs out long if that feels better to you. And you can arrange your arms however you want to arrange them. So they might be out wide, they might be on your torso, your hands on your torso somewhere, or maybe they're even out and overhead. Great, and as you begin to set yourself up, just notice your joints, notice your shoulders and your hips at first. And then notice your elbows and your knees. And then your wrists and your ankles. And your fingers and your toes. And then adjust your head and neck here as well so that the back of the neck is nice and long. Ideally, your chin is kind of drawing in towards your throat a little bit. And now let's just observe the breathing. Let's take a minute here to just kind of notice how the breath is moving in your physical body. I was probably like, I don't know, 5 or 10 years into my yoga practice before it dawned on me that, I had the ability to move my breath around in my body and it wasn't just something involuntary. Does our breath actually go beyond our lungs? Not really, no. But the movement from our breath goes out pretty far. So for these next 45 seconds or so, just take notice of what parts of you are moving just from your breathing. Is there anything that feels like it's clenching, that needs a little bit of softening right now? And even though we're just going to practice a few limited, difficult things this morning, a few really strong poses, it might be nice to remind yourself at the beginning of the practice, I can do hard things. I can do hard things. And 3 more breaths here, just normal breathing, observing your breathing. Right. And then if your arms are overhead or out to the side, let's bend at the elbows and take the hands onto the torso. And it might be that one hand is on the belly and one hand is on the heart, or maybe both hands kind of fall somewhere in the middle. There's no wrong place to put them. And let's take a little bit of focused breathing. So the Loma breath, which is an interrupted inhale. It's a 3-part inhale and then a big old exhale. So we're going to breathe from the bottom to the top as you breathe in. So as you inhale, notice your lower belly moving, and then pause, and then breathe in again. Notice the mid belly moving, and pause, and then breathe in all the way up to the collarbones. Pause, and a big whoosh of an exhale. Good. Take a few more of those. Breathing into the low belly. Pause. The middle belly. Pause. All the way up. Pause at the top. Big, big exhale. 3 more of these breaths at your own pace. Good, and one more at your own pace. Wonderful. Okay, just allow your breath to come back to what normal is for you. And let's grab a hold of the block or the blanket brick item sort of thing, and we're just going to take it in between the thighs, like right above the knees. And from here, we're going to bring the legs up to about 90 degrees-ish. Maybe your shins are parallel with the floor. I like to take my hands underneath my lower back because I feel like it helps me to sort of like brace myself a little bit more. But you might prefer to take your hands out to the sides, and that's fine too. All right, and we're just going to drop the knees to one side and hover there. And take a breath there. Good, and bring them back up through center. Drop the knees to the other side, hover, take a breath. Good, back through to center, and just rock it side to side here, hovering, taking one breath. Good, back to center and over to the other side, and try to avoid like momentum from the weight of the legs. See if you can move like really deliberately here from side to side. And we're just building a little bit more awareness of all of the muscles that work here in this sort of movement. Good. Your knees might come down really far, close to the floor, or maybe your knees are a little bit more up towards the ceiling. We're all sort of working with different bodies. So if you find your knees up high, that's totally fine. The point is less about like how far you're going into this and a little bit more about how much attention you are paying to your own physical body here and to your own breath. Let's take maybe another 5 breaths worth of movement. Right, and the next time you find your knees dropped over to the right, I just want you to go all the way there and drop into your spinal twist. You can keep that block there, especially if your lower back has a tendency to feel a little bit iffy. But you might also take that block away. And then let's bend the elbows and take the hands onto the belly. So that left hand might fall like on the side of your rib cage, the right hand right at the center of the belly. I like to give myself a little like tummy rub, a little side of the rib cage rub. You might move your fingers around your torso, or maybe you just let your hands sit there and just observe the quality of your breathing. And let's take maybe like a good minute or so here in this twist. And see if just for now you can really keep your mind with yourself. I know that probably every single one of us is going to walk off of the mat this morning and just get real busy with all of the things that we have to do. That's fine. It's totally fine. But now, right now, I think it's important to spend that time paying attention just to yourself. This is time for you, nobody else. Again, taking notice of the quality of the breath, the way it moves your belly and rib cage. And for these last couple of breaths, you might stretch your arms out past your head, maybe even clasp your wrists overhead if that feels right. And if that feels wacky in the shoulders, you're always welcome to just arrange your arms however makes the most sense. Right? Whatever works best for you. Good. And then as you come back through to the center, let's just stretch those limbs out. Let's stretch the arms out. We're going to take a starfish pose here, this big stretched out shape. I like to think of this as kind of representative of all the directions that we are kind of called in every single day. Right, one arm going that way, one arm going that way, feet in 2 different directions too, head and tailbone reaching apart. And now breathe deeply and notice the middle of your belly moving. As you inhale, imagine the breath can move in through that middle part of your belly, out into the limbs, up into the top of the head. And as you exhale, imagine it can concentrate back into that center part of you. Good. Imagining the breath can come and go from that place. Let's take 5 more of them. Breathing in through the belly, out into the arms, down to the feet. Breathing out, everything concentrating back into the belly. Good. 3 more breaths. Right, and then let's hug it all in, knees towards the chest. It might feel nice to pick up the head just for a moment here, just to feel the middle of your back pressing into the floor. I know that when I practice those like hovering twists, it's always my mid-back that feels like it's getting most of the strengthening. So here with your head lifted, feel the middle of the back pressing in, feel those shoulder blades kind of curling up away from the floor. Good. And then let's set the head and shoulders back down. And it might be nice to take your hands behind your head here, if for no other reason than to kind of trick yourself into thinking that you can relax. Sometimes when I place the upper body like this, it's a good reminder for me to like soften the jaw, to soften the eyes. Good. And so your knees are going to stay bent here, and then we're just going to extend one leg at a time. So extending that right leg out long, let it hover over the floor. Hold it there for a couple of deep breaths and breathe. Yeah, breathe, breathe, breathe so big. Good, bring it back through to the center. Other side, extend that left leg out long. Hover that left leg, flex through the foot. Use your muscles. Yeah, big, big breaths. Good, bring that left knee back in, and we're just gonna repeat that at your own pace here. Ideally taking like maybe 2 breaths or so on each side. Good, the whole time, your eyes kind of soft, your jaw kind of soft. I think, is it Glennon Doyle that says we can do hard things? We can do hard things. Good, just taking it side to side, maybe 10 more breaths here. And rather than mentally checking out, which I know my mind always kind of wants to do, it always wants to run away from the discomfort happening in my body, see if you can dive a little bit further into the discomfort, right into the fact that maybe the muscles of your belly are burning a little bit. And just a few more breaths. Nice. Let's set the soles of the feet down on the floor. We're going to pick up the hips and shift them over to the right, and we'll drop the knees over to the left. And so here you might decide, things will feel better if I place a block in between my knees. Maybe that's great. Maybe that works for you, or maybe you don't need the block, and that's also totally fine. Another thing that I sometimes like to have around is a blanket, just in case my shoulder feels a little bit lifted and uncomfortable. Really, it goes a long way. When we practice twists, I think it's really best not to force anything. So if it feels like you're just sort of hanging out in space, support yourself so that you can breathe and eventually soften, right? The last thing we want to do is like force our spine into any weird positions. Good. Good. So hanging out here, let's take about a minute or so just to breathe. Maybe the hands find the torso again. Maybe you're giving yourself that little bit of like, yeah, like a side of the waist and a little belly rub. I tend to hold tension on the right side of my middle or lower back, so I'm actually walking my fingertips around towards my spine and like digging in back there. Just be a little bit intuitive with those hand movements if you're taking them, with that little bit of massage. Maybe you just want to, place your hands on your body and casually observe the breath. And why don't we take another 3 deep breaths here? Okay. And let's come back over to the center. And I think we're just going to take one more little strengthening exercise from our backs. And for this one, we're going to send both of our feet up. Now, just kind of take notice of how your lower back feels. Sometimes, like the bones of my lower back around my sacrum, sometimes that feels a little bit tender. And if that's the case for you, again, this is where the blanket is our friend. We can place the blanket there, give ourselves a little bit more padding and support. And then we're just going to take some circles, right? So try to keep your feet as close together as possible. Maybe the inner edges of your feet are even touching. And again, your arms can do what they need to do here. So they might be stretched out to the side, or your hands could be under your lower back. That's a really nice way to kind of pad and cushion. And we're just going to take these circles, sweeping them around. And it doesn't matter how far down your feet go or how close to the floor your legs get. None of that matters, okay? The most important piece of this, again, is that you are breathing and you're here with yourself. Sometimes we push ourselves so far we kind of like mentally check out of our bodies. So let's avoid that. Let's just push ourselves just enough so that we feel something, but not so much that we want to like get out of town, Good. And then let's stop in the center. We're going to pull the knees into the chest just for a moment here. Release some of the tension that might have built up in those hip flexors. Maybe 2 more breaths in the middle. And then let's go the other way, right? So this is probably going to be the least comfortable way, the weirder way. You're just taking time here. Make those circles, and they can be big, they can be small. Maybe the circles are super tiny, That's fine too. Good. Why don't we take another like 7 or 8 breaths or so. The floor is so creaky. Good. Just a few more. Right, and then let's set the soles of the feet back down. And from here, a really nice, easygoing, restorative bridge pose. So that block can be underneath your pelvis. You can stack up a bunch of pillows. Right, and after all of that strengthening of this area here, we just want to give it a little bit of release, a little bit of a stretch. Good. Really feel each one of your toes on the floor if possible. Breathe. Feel your heels on the floor, your arches lifting. Good. And notice your ankles here and your lower legs. Good. Notice those knees, thighs relaxing, and glutes relaxing. Pelvis nice and heavy and supported by the block or whatever is underneath it. And now just notice the quality of sensation in between your hip points, right here at the very low belly. And maybe just take a couple of breaths and notice the movement in that space. Good, and take notice of the sides of your waist, your navel area, and notice the center of your belly, just in between your breastbone and your navel. Good, and then bring your attention out into your fingertips and feel each fingertip here. Notice your wrists and your forearms, your elbows and your upper arms. And then both of your shoulders, where you're connected to the floor, the back of the head, the top of the head. And allow the face to soften just a little bit here. And notice the space in between your shoulder blades and the center of the chest. And then let's collect again into the center of the belly, into the solar plexus, just in between the breastbone and the navel. Good. Just a couple more breaths. Right. So from here, pick up the hips. Let's take that block out of the way. And let's set the hips back down, and we're just going to roll over onto our bellies. Oh my goodness. Half an hour just goes by way too fast. But I feel like just for a moment here, let's take a little Sphinx pose. Let's stretch our low belly. Let's draw the elbows in towards the sides of the rib cage. Keep thinking about this gentle pulling motion. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, but it's this energetic kind of pull the elbows back towards the top of the pelvis, and those lower ribs kind of sneak forward. And this is a nice kind of compression for the lower back, which can be really super helpful in healing if you have low back pain. Think about relaxing those glutes a little bit if possible. Good. And just take maybe 3 or 4 deep breaths here. Good. One more deep breath in and big breath out. Good. And then go ahead and set your chest down. Make contact with the mat just for a moment. And I shake those hips out. Shake them side to side. Great. Hands come underneath the shoulders or alongside the chest. And let's bring ourselves to sit up in any kind of seated position that works for you. Right, and we're going to practice some mudra this morning. We're going to practice Rudra Mudra, which is all about your solar plexus chakra and your feelings of self-confidence, motivation, determination. Okay, so we're going to take the thumbs and touch them to the index fingers and to the ring fingers, and we're going to extend through the pinky and the middle fingers, Rudra Mudra. And let's take the hands onto the lap and just sit up nice and tall. Good. A deep breath in all the way up to the top of the head. And a deep breath out to notice what parts of you are connected to the floor. Good. And then bring all of your attention into your solar plexus. Feel your solar plexus bounce right above your pelvis and your head right above everything else. So one nice long line here. And reminding yourself that you can do hard things. You can do hard things. And let's just sit for 10 breaths more with Rudra Mudra. And this little quote from Haruki Murakami, which I saw yesterday and was like, oh, yeah, yes, yes, yes. He wrote, maybe working on the little things as dutifully and honestly as we can is how we stay sane when the world is falling apart. Maybe working on the little things as dutifully and honestly as we can is how we stay sane when the world is falling apart. Okay, just a couple more breaths, filling up, emptying out. Great, and let's bring our hands together at our heart, and they might stack on top of each other. Take a deep breath in to lift the heart up into the hands, broaden across those collarbones. And a deep breath out, dropping your head down towards your hands and your heart, honoring this time you spent taking care of yourself and honoring other folks who are practicing with you. Yay, everybody. Happy Friday. Happy weekend. I shall see you again on Monday morning for our 15 minutes of mudra and meditation. And be sure to go to our website at abideyogacleveland.com to check out our full schedule of classes. I think we have like 14 or 16 of them right now, ranging in format from Zoom to Facebook Live to even live and in-person classes, socially distanced, in Abide's backyard, which is a beautiful little nook on Larchmere in Cleveland. So any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you all. It was nice to be here with you this morning. All right, bye.